It's Thursday, December 8th, 2022. So I'm watching Channel 7 News at 12 at noon. And they have on, I saw it this morning earlier on a different program, Celine Dion and her health battle. Something with, it's a neurological and the stiffening, it's called stiff person syndrome or something. Again, symptomatically, just the words sound slightly relatable to what I've got going on. But there's then what happens is I don't think she's an American. I think she's from an outside healthcare system. But then they put on someone from my local healthcare system, which is called Northwell Health, which is the hospital where I've been hurt before, but only place I have to go. And it says, I just got a letter from them on a survey. It says Zucker, which I find interesting. Zuckerberg is the name of the guy from Facebook on the platform that I never was planning on using because, again, I didn't really see a point in it. And had things gone appropriately, I would have never have needed to make any of these documents, but here we are. So I'm watching, and they put on someone from, now I don't know if she's seeking medical treatment in America. I mean, it gets a little confusing how they segue this, but they put this guy on, doctor supposedly, and he's saying, now I have no way of vetting if like he's a real doctor or not, if he's really in the system, but he's speaking as though he's a doctor. He's speaking as though he's a doctor. He's performing like he's a doctor, and he's saying that he's speaking about the level of medical education, like if there's like a ceiling that they allow the practitioners in the local area without health ministry and other class levels getting involved, and how does this new health system that they've created actually work in real action and motion. He's defining the symptoms and the perception of the symptoms and the anatomical malfunction or dysfunction in, but it's at like biological physiological terms. It doesn't take into account atmospheric climactic, it doesn't take into any of like the exterior environmental and ergonomics. It's only Western medicine at, they try to recognize a symptom and then issue some form of drug or relief for the system. And there's a whole bunch of diagnostic tools. Like that's really their cycle of industry at the moment, from what I have access to at the common level, at just in the field and having a real hard time myself, but I can't even seem to get somebody to do any form of scans to make sure it's not brain cancer or whatever. I mean, I've had several small diagnostics, but I've had to try to figure out which way to go, and none of the primaries have really been active in this. So, in fact, one just sat around telling me it was anemia for years without any formal whatever. So I'm watching her and I'm watching this and I'm watching who Zucker chooses to represent them as the face of the institution at the moment for this Channel 7 ABC's Eyewitness News. And again, I'm not happy. I mean, it's going through the system trying to seek treatment for which I'm almost getting blackballed or having a real serious issue with getting the appropriate medical care. And then seeing who they're choosing as their professional face consistently, and knowing I'm still within those walls and within that system, not getting the appropriate care, um, along with some other educational issues and some other ability to even find. It's almost like at family, tribal, and clans level of inner to outer management. Like, there's a problem. Like today, I took my son on a field trip to Queens County Farm. Luckily, there was somebody on the farm who taught us what a Cooper was, who taught us the Dutch colonial um, Joseph Dahl and such, so on and so forth. There were signs of colonial times. We did colonial cooking today. It was a one-time event, again, for feedback in the environment, um, like a full loop circle. A few things happened there. One was we went to the farm. They showed them the vegetables. They showed them the pot, the hearth. The set was circa 1772. They pointed that out. It's a landmark, they said, so it's historic. They're not allowed to professionally develop on it. Like, they got a lot of fun facts. It was actually really um, interesting for me, more, I think, than my son, because some of the stuff that they spoke about were answers to questions I've been asking universally, like to myself in the phone, and then it winds up coming back somehow. Um, so we're in this situation. Um, it shows the churning, like they converted cream into butter. They made a cornbread. They made a vegetable soup or stew. Well, they said soup. The kids went on a hayride. Like, it was a really engaging like day for them. Lots of new vocabulary that is not just customary in the four walls of the school. I thought that it was really, really important to have some of that field experience mixed in. I think that it was fantastic. Um, and, but then, of course, I'm thinking to myself, like, missed opportunity. Like, there was opportunity there and given, greatly appreciated, well received. But then I'm thinking, was there missed opportunity? I'm thinking to myself, well, an integration in such a trip where they show like the actual churning of the butter by this hand way of doing things, but then to go, and again, like, I don't know if culinary school does this or not, but I'm just talking for, because there's a health paradigm shift with what I'm going through at the moment with the separation, with the constant um, pressure being forced into the cream, and then forcing it into butter and whatever. Again, physiologically and anatomically, I'm wondering, with cellulite, that's where my head goes in medical terms. I'm like, that's an interesting way of looking at it. But anyhow, I digress. So, but there's like that chemistry portion that I would have thought, like, hands-on laboratory would have been really interesting. But anyhow, I digress. So there was that today, um, with going over to this to the learning institution with, or learning elementary school, and this field trip that we went on. And then I come back, and it's back to Celine Dion's Health Battle. And then I noticed in the afternoon they had on Northwell Health. I had gotten this piece in the mail. It's a Zuckerberg or Zucker, which reminds me of Facebook, which is where this will wind up as part of a document for whatever I've got going on in pieces. And then there's that whole like quantum physics and interdimensional science that I'm missing, which I would have loved to have been a part of, in a different way. But there's that mirror universe. There's like a magic mirror where you can see two sides of the same coin at the exact same time that it's being whatever. And then there's the being able to pull it off of something. Like there's all these pieces of definable space that never had definition before, especially in 1978 when I arrived for the level of humanity I arrived in the area that I arrived. And just sitting here in the quiet thinking about how to protect myself and each piece that I've made from reaching the hands of some whatever that I've never met. And they obviously, like, I mean, again, and how in that paradigm or in that time, how they sitting in their time capsule somewhere else and me alone in this time capsule. And how do I protect myself from them trying to move action or judgment or portray me in some manner or hurt me in some manner after I've already been in this area for so long, 44 years, and other pieces have gone on prior to my arrival in this moment, in this area of time capsule, and how to quantifiably relate it, not only verbally for words that I've never been taught in the field, but in watching some whatever. So again, I'm just trying to structure my own reality with some of the pieces that they've polluted or filled my era with. But to put it back in proper alignment for the conversation that I've needed to have, since my health seems to be deteriorating. There's health professionals, but yet the care does not seem to be of the caliber for which I need. And it keeps progressively getting worse. And I don't know where to turn for diagnostics and for attempt at reversal of whatever effects I'm under at the moment. And then I was thinking about Ashton Kutcher, and then I'm thinking of harmonics, harm being HARM, and then the sound frequency of some of these radio bands of almost like a pitch scale that, like a dog whistle, that a human can't hear because it's not within our range of sonic, like, it was like an underwater, I'm trying to think of the word, if it's an underwater microphone, I think, and I don't know, I thought that there was a some kind of sonic gram or whatever, but again, there's something that can pick it up. I just don't have the words for it. But I've heard, and as of recently, I've heard what claims to be professionals on the TV, which again, I don't know, are they imposters? Are they real professionals? I mean, I would assume that the broadcast network qualifies these people before they put them on, but do I have any real way of knowing if they're imposters, if they're good actors, bad actors? I have no way of knowing. So I'm listening to what they say, and I'm like, right, yeah, I got it. Okay, so I studied basic anatomy, physiology. I understand what he's saying, because it even says on the banner, it says neurology for non-neurologists. It's a surface level conversation for a non industrious person to just get enough of an answer that it's like, okay. But when you're in the trenches of your health is being altered and the only result is gaining back full function that you'll accept, it's not a good enough answer.
Earlier in the newscast, that icon Celine Dion announced on her Instagram page that she was diagnosed with a rare neurological condition called stiff person syndrome. It has forced her to postpone her 2023 tour.
Yeah, we want to take a moment there, have an in-depth look into this diagnosis, and we're joined by Dr. Ritesh Ramandi, Director of Deep Brain Stimulation from Northwell Health. Good afternoon, Doctor. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little more about what these symptoms are, and is there a mortality rate with this kind of a syndrome?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. You know,
I find it interesting also they use the word deep, DEEP, somewhere over on the whatever. They came out with deep state the other day. I'm like, again, in state of the art, field mechanics, is the human the art piece and the artwork, like when we frame this conversation? Or because this gets a little confusing why this is the mouthpiece of like the ceiling at medical level for which I'm traversing through, but having a real hard time getting to a level that might exist somewhere as we coexist, but is not being offered to my person for one reason or another, which is unbeknownst to me.
stiff person syndrome is a rare neurological condition, but it is a progressive condition. There's, the mortality rate is not necessarily elevated, but it could cause significant symptomatology and disability if it's not diagnosed as well as treated appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, in Celine Dion's case, she says that it has affected her ability to walk, her ability to use her vocal cords the way she has in the past. So, what does the future look like for her? I mean, she sees that it's a silver lining that she knows what her diagnosis is. Knowledge is power. But what does this mean for her future performances as a singer?
It's difficult to say right now because it is a condition that can fluctuate and it can present in different ways in each patient. And so it's all going to depend upon what her response is to treatment. And there are a number of different treatments for this condition, and how she responds to that it will really determine what she will be able to do in the future, as well as continuing her career.
Is it possible to recover from this disorder?
Oh, absolutely. There are a few patients, a small percentage of patients that can have a spontaneous remission, but there are many patients once diagnosed can be treated effectively.
Now, this is interesting because now, for anybody who cares or has been following me in a whatever, my whole one viewer that I have, I think at times I have 4 viewers, whatever. Um, Not complaining because really I would just like one person to fix this and then I could move on, perhaps in a way that humanity was designed. I mean, I see a lot of humans enjoying themselves, finding a person to journey with, enjoying time together, and being creative, spontaneous, all the stuff for which I've never been able to do. So there lies in an even bigger, deep set issue. Um, but this is the level of conversation of doctor when I go. And then, of course, because I have a little bit of training and I'm the patient, so I know what's going on with my body. When I try to ask questions or offer information that I know is pertinent to things that I'm concerned about, activities that I can't seem to do any longer because I'm losing the ability to have balance or whatever. Um, which is intermittent also. It's not a consistent. But trying to bring that up to the doctor has been difficult as well. Um, so, and I see here also Celine Dion. Apparently, she must have been in Vegas, or I don't know if this one's Vegas or not, but I saw Caesar's Palace. I think Caesar's Palace. Or was it the Bellagio? I don't know. I can't remember because, again, I didn't really go out touring Vegas. Um, it was I had an itinerary and it was like to the itinerary. So I didn't bother or mess up security.
With medications as well as those who needed immune therapy as well.
And do we know what causes it?
We don't. It remains difficult to understand why people get this level of muscle rigidity as well as spasms. We do know that there are antibodies that target specific receptors in the brain that mediate certain neurotransmitters that are associated with this condition. Also, other autoimmune disorders. As well as underlying malignancies can sometimes trigger a stiff person syndrome. So all of those things need to be screened and evaluated for anyone that is undergoing a diagnosis or has been diagnosed with this condition.
Dr. Ritesh Ramandi with Northwell Health, thank you for making time with us and help us to understand a little bit more about this disorder.
Thank you. Well, still ahead on
Again, but if you're going to the doctor's office and if that's the kind of answers you're getting, which is kind of what I've been getting, not necessarily that specific, it becomes difficult because it's like, well, okay, so again, I go in, they tell me anemia. I'm like, now what? He's like, nothing. I'm like, what do you mean nothing? Well, it's something that you wanted to mention it. So how do I fix it? He's like, take iron. Okay, take iron. How long do I take iron? And is it just iron over the counter? Like, is there, and then nothing. And then we'll just watch it. And then there was countless amounts of blood taken, but no real answers as to why, no real direction how to get my energy back. And just as my health just kept being depleted and getting worse and worse and worse, some mysterious onset of something called an anemia, until eventually somehow I lost blood with no hematological event that then I needed a blood transfusion. I mean, like, again, logically, it doesn't make sense. Now, this is interesting also. This afternoon, they put on this thing about TikTok, just as one example, just one. They're saying that there's a couple of people banning the use of it because here you have like all this innocence going about conducting themselves in however they're conducting themselves. And then they're afraid they use the Chinese government, just using some kind of law, whatever, at some corporate level, and then requiring them to just hand over records to this outside foreign country. And I'm like, for like, assuming there were adults on the field and more like superiorly more important people than what I arrived to. I mean, like, I really did not want to believe that there was nothing built before I arrived, that there had to have been some kind of structure. I just couldn't see it. I can't imagine that they would have built this allowance. I mean, it baffles me when I hear this stuff.
Security concerns that led 3 states to ban the TikTok app on their state devices.
Stay tuned to learn.
Here, it says state officials.
Officials in Texas, Maryland, and South Carolina are now banning TikTok from their state devices. And now another state is suing the social media app. Indiana filed two separate lawsuits against TikTok and its Chinese parent company, ByteDance. State officials accusing them of threatening privacy and child safety. The lawsuits claim the app's algorithm provides inappropriate content to users as young as 13. In addition, the suit claims TikTok exposes consumers' data without their knowledge to the Chinese government and community party.
China has laws that can compel companies to turn over data. Now, TikTok has said that it has never turned over data to the Chinese government, but U.S. lawmakers have not taken the company at its word.
And TikTok responded to the lawsuit, telling ABC News that privacy and security is a top priority and that they build youth well-being into their policies by limiting features by age and empowering parents with tools and resources.
That's one of the most frightening stories I've heard in like the longest time. Now, also this morning on CBS E244, they came out with this. There's somebody from some Fox network. I've seen her in the past in whatever I was doing right before I got attacked, before I had a cyber attack. In my human physiological to astronomical space, like anatomical to astronomical space was attacked. But now I hear them saying something about non-disclosure, and I'm like, again, it is so confusing when this whole thing is so confusing to me, honestly. Like, no clear definitions. There's no, like, I don't even know what law group handles this. I don't know how you find a lawyer. I just tried to find a lawyer about the health shift that I'm having in, like, what are my options? Like, what should I do? And he just brushed me off.
A new law is giving workers more opportunity to report sexual harassment on the job. President Biden signed the Speak Out Act yesterday. Now, this allows employees to be released from certain non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs as they're called. Our national correspondent, that's Jerika Duncan, spoke with former Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson, also a former CBS News correspondent, Gretchen is, and former Fox News contributor Julie Roginski. They led the effort to get this law passed, and Jerika has followed their journey for the past 3 years. Jerika, good morning. They've been working on this very hard.
They absolutely have, Gail. Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone at home. You know, it is not unusual for companies and employers to use NDAs. They've been used here at CBS, and some companies will use them to protect trade secrets. But the problem is these NDAs have also been used to cover up bad behavior, and this new law aims to help change that.
Now, in my instance, is that what we're talking about with Chase, with this whole $38,000 living in New York, while there are other jobs at that company. I met with an inside mentor. I tried to find out. They assigned me to somebody. I went to Manhattan once to meet with him, to try to find out what area of the bank I should go, where I could, find something that might be better, I might be better suited to. Also, something that paid a little bit better, because I was having trouble affording my house, my kids, and whatever. And so, again, the money mechanics in New York for what they were offering my person didn't even work. And it wasn't sustainable. I had other things going on as well, but I have no idea if that's what this has something to do with. They also mentioned something about lawsuits, and I'm like, again, how does one even find a lawyer? What kind of lawyer do you need? How do you file a lawsuit? And in what, I hear Gretchen Carlson's getting $20 million. I'm like, for what? I mean, at what point? I mean, they find it so beneficial. I'm a little confused how to use the system myself when there's been so much harm done to my person and so little ability to effectuate within the same system.
We don't believe that there's a place for NDAs to cover up bad behavior at work.
For Gretchen Carlson and Julie Rogensky, the Speak Out Act is about changing a culture rooted in silence.
So that if you are one of the millions of workers in America who signed a non-disclosure agreement on your very first day of work, you now are able to raise your hand and say, my boss or my colleague is sexually harassing me, or I was sexually assaulted, and nobody's going to be able to prevent you up until the moment that you file a lawsuit.
CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman.
Before the Speak Out Act, you really couldn't tell anyone about sexual assault or sexual harassment in the workplace. Because if you spoke out and you knew about these causes, you knew you could be sued.
Now, here's the thing. The average person who goes through New York and then gets a corporate job doesn't know this level of law. They don't explain it on the day that you go in and you sign, yes, I want to be employed here. There's no education and like indoctrination into like, here's our corporate structure and policy. Here's now that you're going to become one of us, you're not allowed to speak about this. You have to act like this. You have to wear this uniform. Like, there's none of that. So now there's people that are acting as though everyone knows, but that's not actually what happens in the field. So now that's one set of circumstances. The other set of circumstances is the $38,000 is just one brick in the wall of things that I've had in a plethora. And again, I don't know, is it because I was a divorced single parent in New York? Is it this like silent problem that's been following me the entire time? Because there was one attempt on my life with the first one, and then there was the second one that came around who I had a serious situation go on in the field with witnesses for whom I don't know how to contact. Same thing on like Santarelli's front lawn. I wouldn't know how to contact any of them, but they know who they are. Same kind of thing.
Also, there's an atmosphere of fear about speaking out and being the only voice that maybe you'll never work again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gretchen Carlson.
That kind of feels like now I can't find work, not work that is suited for what I have going on.
In 2016 and 2017, Carlson and Rogensky came forward with sexual harassment claims against Fox News. The women allege former Fox News chief Roger Ailes sexually harassed them. Ailes and his attorneys denied the accusations before he died in 2017.
When Gretchen first filed her lawsuit, I was still at Fox. And I had two thoughts when that lawsuit.
At my level of human, I don't even know what kind of law it is. I don't know what kind of lawyer it is. I don't know who to seek out. When I went to a lawyer, the advice was not helpful. It was like, yeah, you're asking for a full workout and like, go on your way, nuisance. I mean, it's really difficult. But yet they're functioning, same age group, at some higher level of they had some opportunity to join some kind of network, some kind of corporate structure, and they learned along the way in the field. Yeah, it didn't happen where I was.
Oh my God, this poor woman, we'll never see her again. My second thought, which I couldn't voice to anybody except myself, was, oh my God, so it's not just me. It's not just me.
Does the Speak Out Act do enough?
No. The Speak Out Act only addresses harassment and assault, and it's only for NDAs that you sign on your first day of work up until you file a legal process. This does not address NDAs for all other disenfranchised groups. Any kind of racial discrimination, age, disability, LGBTQ+, gender. This does not address that at all.
Carlson and Rogensky also are not protected under the new law. That's because they signed NDAs during settlements with Ailes and Fox News.
What would change if you were able to talk about what happened to you?
We can't even tell you that because we can't tell you what we know and we can't tell you what we would talk about if we could. A lot of things would change, but what those things are, we can't tell you.
In 2016, Fox News publicly apologized to Carlson. Her settlement was for a reported $20 million.
An article written in Times Magazine in 2016, Gretchen had the headline, How Gretchen Carlson's $20 million settlement is a ripoff. Is there any amount of money worth someone's silence, ever?
I think we would answer that question now. No. We wish that we had our voices, but at the time, that was just the way the system worked. And that's why we're trying to dismantle it.
Carlson and Roginski say, knowing what they know today, they would have not signed those non-disclosure agreements. Nate?
Tarika, thank you.
I think it's good. Listen, they couldn't use their voices then, but they're certainly using it now. I think women everywhere should be saying, thank you so much, Gretchen. Thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah.
Because they're the forefront of change, and it is going to make a difference. But as Gretchen pointed out, still so much more to be
There
done.
are certain topics you just don't sign away your right to talk about, for sure.
But you don't think you have a choice. That's the problem.
That's the problem. You don't actually don't know.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Up next.
Now this is interesting. Same episode, E244. They put on this, I mentioned it earlier this morning, this cartoon about a bill and about the Capitol. I was not in a grade or a class that got to view this. It's not in my memory recall. Quantum leaping aside from where I am now and where I have been, and in this moment where I have had this special child in this very special timing mechanic, gestationally, where there is an overlap for a very special purpose. I was not in this area given the opportunity on this track for whatever these children were able to achieve in impact results and design and whatever social engineering is up to and impact studies. I was not offered this track of learning these things as a child. Although I see that this gentleman has access to it and seems to think it was very helpful for whatever he got to.
Way, Gail. Do it. Here we go. Everybody, watch out. Gail's coming. Okay. There you go. All right.
Did I miss anything?
And this goes back to like somebody was in a graduate study before I entered the time period where learning was important and grooming for the rest of my life was important. So again, I don't know what was said, what was made, what was done, what was agreed upon for life tracks. But there seems to be a whole lot of agreements that were made and got people to a really high place. But it buried me so deep in, I don't even know where to begin. But it's something is really wrong. Especially considering that I'm one of these anatomical pieces in astronomical terms that has this very special spatial relationship in dimensional science, interstellar science, whichever word works better.
Sandy, we're just about to get started. Here we go. So here's a little trivia for you. You ready?
Yes.
Interjection. Oh man! All right, how about this? All right, how about this? How about this? How about we junction? What's your question? In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility.
This is the story of a bill.
Junction. What's your function?
All right, yeah.
All right, lolly, get your adverbs here.
It's something
I'm
you
just
do,
a
right?
bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. All right. So Nate knows what I'm talking about here. If I'm not,
I have no idea.
If I'm not doing justice, watch.
Okay.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long...
Tony is squinting at the television as if this is the first time he has seen this, but if you are a Gen Xer like me, you will know that you learned your civics, math, and grammar watching Schoolhouse Rock.
Now, is that to remind everybody they're just a mouth to feed and a bill that somebody has to pay, and they don't like extra line items on the budget if, like, they don't act appreciative? I'm just curious, because, like, I mean, that's the first thing I think of when I see this. I mean, I wasn't introduced to this level of understanding, but, I mean, in how a bill works on Capitol Hill and so on and so forth, and it seems the really angry television seems to be portraying the system in a different light or a different spin. But I'm never at a loss for there's somebody really respectable somewhere that pays all the bills. And I know I'm just a bill like that nobody really wants to have to pay. They've made that very clear my entire life at Money Mechanics and just how off things are. But I'm just, when I watch some of the television programs and how they argue in plain sight at the networks, I often wonder if they know that their target audience needs help in certain areas. Because I listen to their conversation and I'm just like, none of what you're saying would be me having this conversation for myself. It's coming from Schoolhouse Rock and Disney.
And it is breaking my heart to report that George Newell, the last surviving creator of this popular cartoon that was so influential, has passed away. He was 88 years old. Newell was an ad executive who helped come up with the idea of educating children using cartoons and songs. Guys, the preamble to the Constitution, which I just sang there, we people, that's how I learned it. That's how I learned the preamble of the Constitution.
I mean, I heard the part about the bill. I can honestly say I've heard that.
And how conjunctions
started,
were.
I didn't know.
I didn't know that was part of Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes, Schoolhouse Rock was this series of math and grammar and civics lessons. They had multiplication rock. And the idea was born because the creator said, my kids don't know how to do math, but they sing every lyric to the popular songs that they know.
I'm fascinated by that too.
It was genius, marrying the two things.
Yes.
Education and music and animation.
It
was the first time I learned what a bill was and how to pass a law.
Exactly right.
There you go.
Exactly right. So we're really sad.
Well,
How to pass a law. That's nice that you get to know that. I mean, I'm still at 44 completely lost. My educational track didn't include any of these features. So why was I not being taught what I need to know to survive in these lands? I mean, at all. When there are others who are growing up around me who know far more about the ins and the outs of the system than I was ever able to obtain or acquire from within.
left quite a legacy then.
He did. I mean, I guarantee you there are people who are watching this show this morning that were singing along with me, even if y'all weren't. Although my man Nate had me at my back. All right, let's talk about filmmaker Anton.
So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. Incidentally, at the end of the field trip, I did thank everybody for allowing me to join. Otherwise, Anthony would have missed the field trip. I'm not comfortable with him just getting on a bus and going anywhere at this point. But here we are. And it also, there was that layer of participation, and it was really important. I think that he go and he participate in these things for more reasons than one. So I thank them for allowing me to go with them.